Hey everyone, Chris here, and in this video I'm going to talk about this Polar H10 heart rate monitor. This is an updated review because since I did my original review, things have changed with the Polar H10. They've got better and we'll get into that in this video. So let's start with the unit itself. It's pretty chunky compared to, I use the Garmin HRM-Tri a lot, and if you can see, it's definitely bigger. It is a more chunky unit that you do. I don't know how much I notice it really on the run, but it does feel like it's a bit bigger. Quite easy to change the battery, so it just unclips, which is really nice. Again, I'm just comparing it to the Tri, and here you have to take this cap off and unscrew it to change the battery. With the Polar H10, it just pulls off and you just pull out this little compartment in the back and stick the new battery in there. It uses a CR025 compared to the CR032, which I think is the kind of standard watch battery. This one uses the 025. But you can do it you can almost do it without tools. Like I do find I need something to prise this off, but there's no screwing. So in a pinch, you could probably pull it off with your finger. So nice and easy to change the battery, and then it just clips back onto the heart rate strap. Very nice. In terms of reliability then, so I don't get any dropouts. I know I've been testing stuff on Zwift to see whether I get any dropouts throughout the reading, and the answer with this was no. With the Garmin HRM-Tri, also no dropouts, but I also tried the Garmin HRM Dual, which is originally Garmin just did Ant Plus, and now they've added Bluetooth in, and Dual was their first attempt at that, and that gets, I found that had a load of dropouts. This has been nice and reliable on that, so thumbs up there. Where I have found problems is doing it in the pool, because in the pool your heart rate monitor can't give a constant reading to your watch, so it needs to store it up and then download it later. Now I've got the Garmin Forerunner 935 and I couldn't get this to download my heart rate data after my swim. Now I think that's probably something to do with the fact that this is a Polar and this is a Garmin, and I think if you've got a Polar watch you'll have a much better luck downloading the heart rate data with this. But for me, I haven't been able to do that, so I tend to use my Garmin straps in the pool, and they're fairly reliable in downloading heart rate data. Not perfect. There is quite a lot of fiddling around, but they work maybe 80-90% of the time. Haven't got that working with this, but again, if you've got a Polar watch, I think you'll have much better luck with it. Connectivity. Now this is a big thing for where the Polar H10 gets a plus but also a minus. So originally the Polar H10 was Bluetooth only, and the problem with Bluetooth is it's a one-to-one connection. So if you're doing something like you're in a spin studio and you want to record it on your watch but also have your heart rate monitor appear on the spin bike, or you're doing a triathlon where you've got your watch and your bike computer and you want your heart rate monitor to connect to both, Bluetooth isn't a good option for that because it's a one-to-one connection. Now to get around that, Polar have included two Bluetooth connections, so it could use one connection for say your bike computer and one connection for your watch. And it was okay, but as long as everything worked over Bluetooth. But generally I just don't like Bluetooth. Especially like when I'm racing, because it means pairing quite specifically, whereas Ant Plus just broadcasts it and anything can pick up on that, and I'm not worried about people spying on my data, so it made it a lot easier. But then since I've done my last review where I said it's a shame it doesn't have Ant Plus, Polar have added Ant Plus. And the best thing is it was a software update, so a firmware update. So they haven't even changed the hardware in here. They just rolled out a firmware update that added Ant Plus to this. So if you see my old review and you were wondering, Yeah, but it has Ant Plus. It's because they rolled it out since I originally bought this, but because it came out as a firmware update, I've now upgraded this, and this now has Ant Plus as well. So this probably has the best connectivity of any heart rate monitor I've seen, because it's got 2 Bluetooth channels and it's got Ant Plus as well. Now, there is one downside to having the Bluetooth, and that's that the Bluetooth will connect a bunch of times. So I've normally got this in a bag in my bedroom, and sometimes I'm doing some strength work in my living room. I'm not wearing this, I'm just tracking it on my watch, or I'm doing yoga, so I'm not wearing a heart rate monitor, and it will suddenly say Polar H10 connected. So even though it's in a different room and I'm not wearing it, it will still connect. And that's really annoying, because then it's obviously not working on my watch because it doesn't have a heart rate reading because I'm not wearing it, and also means that it's going to be draining the battery, and that's really frustrating. And I find a lot of the time I have to turn this off on my watch to make sure it doesn't connect, and then turn it back on when I want to use it, and that is super annoying. I don't know if other Bluetooth heart rate monitors do that, but I don't think so. I never had a problem with the HRM Dual doing that, and my other heart rate monitors are Ant Plus only. So it is super annoying that it does that, because it's draining the battery and it's ruining my heart rate data. It doesn't always happen, but happens enough that I have to keep it disabled on my watch and then turn it on when I want to use it. Also, in terms of the apps, so Polar published 2 apps for your phone. There's Polar Beat and Polar Flow. I don't know why they have 2, and I find them both confusing. I think Polar Beat is the one that you need in order to kind of run the test and update the firmware, and it is getting better, but it's not as good as Garmin Connect. I find them pretty confusing, and I wish they would simplify or explain the whole process a little better, but I think it has got better since I originally got this a couple of years ago. In terms of the strap is really nice, it's really comfortable, and has this clicking mechanism here. So you just unclick it. That works really well with Garmin. It's a hook, and the strap tends to fall apart. So I'll show you that in a minute. So it is probably the most comfortable strap that I have worked with, and does have a little bit of rubber to help keep it in place. That said, it's still not going to be great in a pool, because it's just going to move around a lot. So you compare that to a swim specific heart rate monitor. This is the Garmin HRM-Swim. It's got rubber the whole way. And the reason is that you stick it to your chest so that when you dive into a pool or kick off from a wall, it doesn't end up getting pulled down. Whereas these ones, and it's not just Polar, but any of them, tend to get pulled down a little bit when you kick off from a wall in a pool. So the rubber is quite nice for the pool, but it's not very stretchy. So when you're on dry land, don't really want it. So this would be fine like under a tri-suit or under a top, it would be fine. But I wouldn't if I was just going bare chested in the pool. Don't think the strap is a great choice, but it is very comfortable and doesn't fall apart. So compared to this Garmin HRM-Swim, this expands every time and I have to readjust the strap. And there's a bunch of places with hooks, and sometimes these come unhooked. Can't even find where it is now. In fact, I might have lost a piece off here. But these hooks are always coming out, whereas this, it's a one piece. I never need to readjust it, and it just clicks into place. So really nice strap unless you're going to use it bare chested in the pool, but the only way to fix that is to wear an uncomfortable rubber strap. So not the end of the world. Okay, so summary. This isn't my #1 heart rate monitor. My #1 heart rate monitor is the Garmin HRM-Tri. But it is my #2. I probably use this more than I use my swim heart rate monitor. If I'm going on to something like Zwift, then I use this one because the HRM-Tri doesn't have Bluetooth, whereas this has everything now. and so I can really easily connect it, and it's really nice and comfortable, so I like wearing this when I'm Zwifting. Don't use it in the pool because I tend to use my swim specific heart rate monitor because it stays in place and the data downloads nicely to my Garmin watch. But if you've got a Polar watch, then you might find this is a good option in the pool if you can stop it moving around too much. And the other disadvantage is the battery does run down because of that issue with my watch connecting to it when it's in the next room. So definitely some little bugs to work on there for Polar, but overall it's a pretty good heart rate monitor. Like if you only want to buy one, then I think if I could only have one heart rate monitor now, this might not be a bad option, because the if I went with the Garmin HRM-Tri, I'd have to get a Ant Plus adapter whenever I wanted to use Zwift, whereas this will do both Ant Plus and Bluetooth. But there is also now the Garmin HRM Pro, which has both Ant Plus and Bluetooth as well. So that's another option. But it is it's my number 2 heart rate monitor, and I have 3, so it could definitely be worse. That's my thoughts on the Polar H10. Hopefully you found that useful. If so, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you're into triathlon, cycling, running, swimming, hit that subscribe button, because that's what my channel is all about. And I would love to see you in another video.